Hello, everyone. It's Leslie. I'm going to come on just a minute early because evidently I'm impatient today. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to say howdy and introduce yourself to the crowd. We have a few people on. Generally, what happens is by five minutes in, we get a lot more people joining us for the day. So I'm excited to kind of get started. And if you have been joining our webinars, you'll see how this kind of nicely dovetails into what we talked about last month. Last month was about banishing your time demons, and that really does, and we talked about presence, we talked about a lot of different things. That's going to really dovetail well into today's discussion. So if you did not see that, you should have a replay or option for a replay if you registered for it. If not, we'll be repeating it, and if you must see, just shoot us an email over at support@yourbizrules.com, and we'll get you the replay link so that you can see that. I'd rather you had the information so that it made an impact on your business than waited until we did the webinar for that again here in the next 6 months or so. So we're going to go ahead and get started. As always, I have a few introductory slides, so if you're running late, you won't have missed much. But today is really about claiming that crown and how to be able to have a business and a life without it killing you. And I think this is the perfect analogy that you need to have in your business, because we can get trapped in the roles that we play. We can get trapped in the roles that we play in our business. We can get trapped in the roles that we play in our life. And if you're truly going to have that work-life balance, you almost have to elevate yourself up. And if you think about sitting on a throne, overseeing your kingdom and making sure that the kingdom operates as it should, and that no one part of the kingdom is really lacking in attention or growth or in its ability to be everything that it can be, you can kind of see the bigger picture. And that's really what work-life balance is about being able to pull yourself out of the day-to-day and see the bigger picture. So that's why I love this analogy that we're going to be sharing with you today. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got a few, like I said, introductory slides. Just in case we have anybody on the line that hasn't heard why I do what I do, but I came from an entrepreneurial family that wasn't highly successful. So much so that I didn't even realize what an entrepreneurial family that I had come from. And through the course of business ventures, through the course of really succeeding failures that happened, our family was eroded and wasn't set up to be successful. We always seemed to live just a little bit, maybe outside of poverty, but not very high. And then when we did have the opportunity to kind of elevate for ourselves financially, there was a misstep in the business for one reason or the other. And many of you know an accountant embezzled about $20,000 in sales tax money from my parents' business, and that left us financially destitute. And they filed bankruptcy, and really everything that came after was just ugly for the next 7 years. And so the story that I told myself was that family was bad for business. But unfortunately, I am an entrepreneur. I say unfortunately or fortunately, I am an entrepreneur. And so I came back around to this role, this desire, this purpose in my life, and through my own learning, realized that I was kind of allowing my business to operate in a way that was to the detriment of my family, and I'll share a few details of that. So what I do with this business coaching is really help people grow their businesses in such a way that it actually works for the greater good. It works for the family, it works for the person, it works for the finances, all those different elements, so that you have that healthy business and you have a healthy family, and it's all supported. You may have heard about the entrepreneurial phases, and what I love about these phases that I have gone through on my entrepreneurial path is that each little webinar I can pull out the little nuggets that are appropriate to the topic that we're talking about. So, the accidental entrepreneur was with the opening of my first business in 2007, and it was an accident because it wasn't planned. It wasn't planned for. I decided I would do it on a Wednesday and filed incorporation papers on Monday. I mean, that kind of lickety-split in a lot of respects. So I had a lot of learnings that came with opening up that first business. And I kind of say I went through the school of hard knocks. I think I had almost every knock that you could possibly have. But when it comes to the balance issue, I want to talk about a few things here. And so, we, on our first full year, we opened up in May in 2007. So in 2008, by the first 3 months, we were booking, 6 figures of business, and we would do multiple 6 figures of business that year. But it wasn't hard, and I talk about how easy I felt it was. Well, one of the things that made me, quote unquote, feel like it was easy was that I really wasn't working, quote, full time, right? I wouldn't consider myself working hard. And there's this paradox that we have in our society. I think coming out of corporate, if you've done the 9 to 5, or it's actually 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 or 8 to 8 in a lot of cases, if you've done that and been in that environment, you can kind of understand how suddenly having time that you're not spending in your business makes you feel like you're not working hard. And one of the key concepts that I talk about so much with my clients and everybody that I share this information with is it's not really about working hard. Working hard's that kind of Puritan ethic system that's ingrained into this country. And when we had such a society that was built on hard labor, manual labor, if you think about farming, if you think about manufacturing, if you think about sewing, I mean, all the things that we used to do with our hands, there's a physical quality to that. Fast forward to today, when there really is much more of an intellectual quality to that. Yes, there's some repetitiveness, but it's not about this physical hard work exertion. And so we struggle between that Puritan concept of hard work, and hard work will get you where you need to be, and then this concept of our work not really being about physical, and not being about exertion, about being about efficiency and information and our knowledge base and the way that we can help our clients go from one point in their lives to another point in their lives. So when we try to reconcile that, like I was trying to do in the early years of a first business, we can get that feeling of not working hard. I will tell you, I'm a fast-paced individual, so I was bored a lot and didn't know what to do really with this time. So when you don't know what to do with your time, this is one opportunity that life can kind of use the time for you. So in that failing entrepreneurs phase, when I was really struggling, like I said, we were in multiple 6 figures, had been there, recession hit, lost 50% of the business, and I couldn't honestly tell you why, and the compensation that I had is that hard work component came in. So whereas I had success, worked okay hours, I suddenly had a failure, what I took to be a failure, and there was problems in the business, but my compensation went back to that working hard bit. Okay, so the 80-hour week started happening. You may have heard the story to where I would basically wake up at 6, work till 7, go get my children up and get them ready to school, take them out, be back by 8:30, work from 8:30 to 5:30, only stopping at 5:30 because it took me 29 minutes to go get them from where they were, pick them up and bring them home, cook dinner, get everyone fed, go back to work, stop to put the boys into bed, go back to work, and work to midnight or 1 in the morning. That was very, very typical. I think I only didn't do that like on maybe Saturday, but Sunday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was right back at it. So really became that slave and trap fell into that work harder trap that is so pervasive. And I kind of focus on that now because I want you to see if you've got that in your life in order for you to understand that you can choose something different. So the successful entrepreneur, like as you know, turned around their business, grew at 150% in 6 months. Actually had opportunity to spend several days with these gentlemen earlier this month and deepen my learnings and really be in what I'm able to share with you guys. But even with this success, my foot was stuck in the working hard because now I was afraid that if I didn't work hard, then the success would go away. And I think that's a trap that we have. There's a certain element of growing your business, of taking your business to the next level that does require extra effort. Not going to lie about that. But it's what we do once we've gotten to that next step that's really crucial. And if you've gotten the success, but then don't reward yourself in the hour component, if you were like I was, honestly, afraid that I would lose the success again if I didn't keep up those work hours. So coming into really some of the biggest key learnings being the reinvention opportunity that I had as part of an entrepreneurship, moving from Dallas to Houston, Houston to Dallas, sorry. I don't want to go back to Houston. Moving from Houston to Dallas, really forcing myself to uproot a business that was completely word of mouth, networking, referral based into a new city where I did not have contacts and relationships, and still being able to fix and tweak more in the business. And the biggest thing for us today is just through talking about how the work was done, how I would use my time and the priorities, and then getting to this point of having essentially the same level of business. Like there was no dip in my business. There was no financial dip in my business. Having the same financial success in my business, moving cities, losing staff, all of this stuff, and then I was back into that situation that I originally started with, of having a lot of time on my hands. Being able to work that business through efficiencies, through systems, through process, through time management, through smart business growth and focusing on what really mattered in my business, I suddenly had all this freedom of time again. And I'll let you know, it was still a struggle to be able to handle that time, right? And to reconcile that whole work harder mentality that really was such a core aspect of my business. And what's funny is when I was building Your Biz Rules, because I wanted something that could give me even more freedom in my life and allow me to be with my family, allow me to, it's funny, my father-in-law just called, but to allow me to help my father-in-law when he needed help during the day, if it was just what he needed or if he needed help with my mother-in-law that had dementia, I wanted the freedom to be able to do that. The design business wasn't set up to do that. And so I grew the Your Biz Rules in the remaining hours, but I still kind of had that work hard mentality. And so it was in designing Your Biz Rules and in designing the key principles and talking about really the shifting in priority and how I would handle the balance between my work and my life, started to rewrite the rules. And that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about. So with everything, I think one of the best places that you can be as an entrepreneur is to be highly, highly intentional. That is to make choices with the knowledge of what goal it does, what purpose it serves, even if the purpose is just to have a little fun in your business, is really being intentional about those things. So if you look at, last month we talked about time, the month before that we talked about growing your business. If you look at the intentions that you set with each one of these, you really can start to see the power that you can take over and control in your business. So, excuses, I like this, is you really are the owner of your destiny. So if there is an excuse in your life, the only person you truly can look at is yourself and see how you are allowing for that opportunity. And I love this little guy. If you don't know, my husband's an orthotist and a prosthetist, so he does artificial limbs and orthopedic bracing. And so he would be somebody that would make the legs for this little boy. And I know that one of his greatest joys is to enable he's put legs on somebody as young as 18 months old, being able to see them walk and see them do these things. So when you see this little guy, I mean, there's so much joy and so much pride and so many reasons that he should not be running a race. But you know what? He's running the race, and he is crossing that finish line, and there is joy on that boy's face. And so if he can make it through and get over his obstacles and struggles and things and triumph, my question to you is, what's your excuse? So I use things like this to kind of motivate me. I use them to help motivate you. But I want you to keep a count, or even like make a little note as we go through today's webinar of what the excuses are that you're allowing in your life. Because once we say but, if we go but, well, that wouldn't work, all of those things are really talking about excuses. So keep an eye on those, jot them down so that you can really go back and examine them and really say, why is that excuse? What am I doing to allow for it? Because you have the choice to have everything that you want. If you've heard, we all have 24 hours a day, and it's about what you choose to make of it. So rules of the house is be present. It's a gift to yourself. It's not really a gift to me. It is a gift to yourself that you will be able to be present here and be able to hear the information that could be life-changing for you, or if not life-changing, could suddenly allow for you to do those things in your life that you want to do, or even just feel so much better about being where you are when you are there, and that's a huge part of balance. Go ahead and introduce yourself on the chat box. I put a little howdy up there. Howdy, Jamie. How are you? So glad you could join us this week. I was excited to see you on the roster there. But also be sure to post your aha moments. Again, causing attention to them actually means that your brain will subconsciously do something about it. So there's these little simple techniques of success that really can drive you forward. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know there. Like I just said hi to Jamie, I'm going to try to touch base in there and answer your questions as we go along. But make comments, talk amongst yourself. That's really how you're going to get the most from our time together today. So, okay, so pay it forward. This is a pretty deep subject. Like I mentioned earlier, this dovetails very nicely in with the time webinar that we did last month, but I can't go deep into everything. So I would encourage you to either snag that the next time it comes around, shoot me an email at support@yourbizrules.com saying you'd like to get the replay. We'll send you a link so that you can kind of see how these dovetail in. But I'm going to go deep on really the one section that I feel like people are, oh my gosh, have the hardest time. And so we'll get, I don't want to spoil what that is because it's kind of, well, it's fun for me, but it can make a huge impact in your life. When we get there. So this is really going to be for you if you feel like you're exhausted by being all things to everyone, being that chief cook and bottle washer in your business and your life. And it's one of my missions to get you out of that role and get you into the role of ruling your business. And if you're ready to figure out another way to do this, another way to have a business and a life and not be dying from it, not be physically, mentally, emotionally drained from that activity, then you're going to get some value from today. We're going to talk about what the one word that will seriously drain you of all your energy, time, money, motivation, almost anything. We'll talk about really what the myths of balance were. We had a great rise of the concept of work-life balance and the concept of multitasking in the 80s and 90s, and those rules are being rewritten right now. So I'm going to kind of share some of those with you, and then we're going to really get into what the rules are to really being able to claim that crown and get you back into control, because that's really what the biggest issue is if you're feeling a little out of control. So let's get into the one word. The one word is yes. The one word that really can create havoc in your business is yes. And when we talk about the word yes, it's kind of like the concept that we talked about with the word with hard work. And you can see my little fingers in quotation marks. But the word yes is really something that we're taught to do as a child, right? You don't contradict an adult. You say, yes, ma'am. It's polite. It's gracious. It shows respect. And there are all of those moments that are definitely benefits. You know, they're added value in our lives. But we're never really taught how to say no. And so the power of yes becomes watered down because we say yes even when we mean no. We say yes when we know in the back of our minds that we should have said no. You know, I was talking, Amy is on with us, my VA, and I was talking to her earlier about a yes that I did for PTA. And I was like, I knew it, I knew what it meant, but I also knew what I wanted to do. I'm just kind of paying the price at the moment. So we say yes for a million reasons, and we say yes when we should say no for about a million more reasons. And if you think about that, and I want to challenge you because even this is my maverick spirit. You know, I had a child that got in trouble for saying no in class. Now, he did do it very disrespectfully, but they were focusing on the fact that he said no. And I have to tell you, I don't think no is a bad word. I think our world would be so much better if more people said no. Said no to injustice, said no to poor behavior, said no to breaking of boundaries, because there's this concept that I have to get you over, that no is not a bad word. No does not mean that you're delivering poor customer service. No does not mean that you're going to have unhappy clients. And there's ways, and I'm going to kind of share these ways with you, of being able to say no. But there's some, you need to see the duality of yes and no, and understanding that a yes is a no, and a no and is a yes. And I think I have this coming up, so let me kind of move through. I have the picture of the frog in the boiling water because it's this basically, how do you boil a frog alive? Not that I would want to, but the story, how would you boil a frog alive? And it's basically that you turn up the heat incrementally, right? When we say yes, imagine yourself as the frog. And each time you say yes, you're turning up the heat incrementally, especially in your business, in your lives and commitments that you make. You're turning up the heat, the pressure, okay? And so that's why I have him on there, because that's a little bit of what you do to yourself when you say yes, when you mean no. And if you talk about really all the fears that become behind the word yes and why we use it, it has a lot to do with the lack of confidence. We don't feel confident in our reasons behind it. We don't feel confident in somebody else understanding it. We have a lack of value. So we're really not clear, and clarity is kind of in there too. You know, we're really not clear on the whole why. Maybe we're saying yes out of instinct or intuition, but we don't have facts and figures to say, basically why. We have a fear of rejection. So if you've ever told a 3-year-old no and then experienced the 20-minute temper tantrum that would come after it, it's kind of like that. We do this still as adults. We have moments where we're still having, conversations with grown adults, and they're throwing temper tantrums because we've said the word no. So there's, that kind of fear of confrontation that comes in with it. Most people just want to be happy and make people happy, and no doesn't always fit into their perception. And so I wanted to go over that so you really understand why we say yes, and so that you can understand the value of no, okay? So there's a cost of every yes is basically it. And even when, like I said, the PTA, I knew what the cost was. And I told you I'm paying the cost at the moment, meaning I have a lot more to do than I would particularly enjoy doing at the moment, but I understood the cost of me saying yes. A lot of us, when we say yes, it's that gut reaction. Like the first word that will come out of our mouths as a request is yes. And then we have to jump through hoops to make it happen or to deliver on it. So I need you to understand that for every yes, is a no, and for every no is a yes, and that's what this cost is. So if you think about this, if you're going to say yes to a request, to a commitment, to a client, to your staff, to whatever that element is, I want you to actually go through the conscious decision of what am I saying no to? Because it's great to have that goals, that we talk so much about. It's great to have the big why that we talk about. But when we say yes to things at the cost of those goals and our big why and our big purpose and our, how we want our client service to run and how we want the experience to be in our business, we're saying no to those things by being overly committed and not keeping the bigger game in mind. So understanding that value behind what you're saying yes or no to is really key. So a lot of times when you say no to an external resource, you're actually saying yes to yourself. And if you can think about it in those terms and just, consciously start to cost what that cost of the yes is, then you'll be in a lot better situation. It helps kind of curve some overcommitments. It also helps curve that out of balance segment that we get into, okay? So how to say no. I think this is one of the best books I've read in a long time. I read it last year. It's by William Ury. William Ury is a very high-level negotiator. I mean, he negotiates between countries, companies, the whole 9 yards. And there's a prior book to Positive Now. I didn't look it up for this, but there's another one out there. And so, yes, this is a book about negotiation, but that's really what every request is a negotiation. If you've got a child who loves to negotiate with you, you understand. My oldest is the king. And so I've had to become a much better negotiator in order to be able to navigate getting what I want, letting him, get some value too, and being able to move forward. So there are a couple of things that I would give to you as tips on really how to say no. And the first one is pause. Pause before your answer. And if you're unsure, just say, you know what, I'd like to have some time to think about this. Can I get back to you tomorrow morning? A lot of times when I know that I need to provide a concrete answer and a well-formulated answer back, that's exactly what I will say. Even Amy will know. We were talking about a deadline for something that's coming up, and she was like, when do you want it? And I was like, well, and I just sat there because I needed time to really process what the appropriate answer was for something. So even taking just a pause, and a lot of times, with my work, it's very virtual, so it's sometimes just voice to voice. I will say, let me have a moment to think. Nobody's going to begrudge that, and if they push it, then they're probably not in your best interest. I love the polite decline, and this is really something that I heard from Jim Rohn many moons ago, that he talked about the polite decline being a way to extricate yourself from a commitment or an ask for a commitment. Maybe it's a worthy cause, maybe it's a worthy request, but it's not appropriate for this time or the focus for this time. And it's basically to say, right now that doesn't seem like something I would be able to take advantage of, but if that changes, may I come back to you? And the reason that polite decline or Disney moment, and I'll talk about the Disney moment in a little bit, but that polite decline works, is it really shifts back and gives them something that your opposite person can say yes to. Because just as much as you feel like saying no is a rejection, a lot of us hear no as a rejection, right? So we're talking about phrasing it in a way that is greasing the wheels, if you will. My father always had a saying that you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, and it's a little bit of that type of analogy. And then what William Ury goes into saying is basically you say yes, no, yes. So you say yes to yourself, to your boundary, you assert your no in a positive way, and you propose a new yes. So unfortunately, I don't have time for that right now, but if that changes, can I get back to you? So it's the same kind of yes, no, yes type of formulaic way of being able to say no to somebody in a way that you feel good about, they feel good receiving, and it really just makes life easy. So if you've got that confrontation issue, if you've got some issues there, this would be a great read. It's a small, thin little book, but I keep it around here all the time, especially when I'm helping clients navigate things through that they're going to have to share a no, either with a client or employee, or sometimes even family members, and want to do that in a way that preserves the relationship. And I think that's another important component of the power of positive no. It's all about preserving the relationship. And so this is just one way to do it. I would say read this. I actually have a podcast episode from early last year on this, so you can do a search on yourbizrules.com for the positive no, and it should pull up for you. So let's get into the myths of balance. If you've been in the community for a while, you've probably heard me talk about Matt Muzak, and his podcast, Balance is Bunk. And I love his podcast. I love his concept and enjoyed talking to him. But in some of our conversations, we really talked about balance. And so the analogy that came up was this surfer and being on a surfboard. I'll tell you why that matters in a little bit, but I had to let you know why it was a guy on a surfboard. So the first myth of balance is that it's an achievement, right? It's like you arrive and you're done. That's not going to happen. It's just not. It's not that constant, right? And it's got to take that consistent intention and focus and priority for you to achieve it. The minute you think you've arrived and you let it go, it will go away. Right? Just like we talked about with time, the minute that you didn't create a container, create space for your moment to happen, it goes away. That rubber band that you could expand snapped away. Same thing with balance. It's that same kind of intangible thing that you can't see, but you always have to focus on. And so, to this quote, it's all about the journey, not about the destination. This is not about a destination that you will arrive, but we have tended to have this accomplishment, like we should get this gold medal. I have balance, and then because you got it once, it should always be there. Myth number 2 is that balance is static, and I thought this was a great image to kind of show, this one woman standing amongst all the traffic of the subway going on around here. Is because your life is in action, because your life is involved with so many different parties, from the people that are driving on the streets around us, to the people at our offices, to the people in our, our personal lives. Life is always moving, and there's so many moving pieces that you do not and should not try to control out there, okay? So if you understand that there's more this action-based, destination or journey action-based aspect of balance, and that it's a higher level of strategy that you apply to your life, that's some of the myths that you really can kind of get your head around and start to banish these guys out. Now, a lot of this stuff is what we've grown up with. So if you're around my age in your 40s, this was a big part of our early education. We're probably one of the first generations to really be sorely planted into the 80s and have a lot of that culture affect us. This other one I think is huge too. So balance is a quality. This is probably the #1 reasons why we all feel that we can never obtain work-life balance, because we feel like we should have work on one scale and life on the other. Even when I went out to pull images for this presentation, that one image of the scales of justice with work on one side and life on the other was just everywhere. It's not about equality at all. You are one person. You can only be in 1 minute, in one place, truly only doing one thing at a time. So with each minute that passes, you can never split it in a way that's about equality. I think this is probably the biggest myth that we struggle about. And so if you can get past the fact that it's not an accomplishment, if you can get past the fact that it's not just stayed, once you get it, you have it forever, and if you can get over the concept of equality, you'll kind of see this. And I'll give you just a parental example. So I have two boys, two very different boys with very different agendas some days. There's times, though, when they need more focus than the other one does. And we always laugh in our house that when one child is in trouble, the other one becomes an angel. Like, look at me, Mom, I'm doing so good over here. It's the same thing with work and life, okay? You're going to have opportunities where you have to put more attention in one area, and then you're going to need to put attention on the other place. The aspect of balance and what we're trying to do here today is that, yes, I want you to focus on your business, let's say, for example, but I also want you to be able to step back and be able to give life the same attention. Just like I talked about my entrepreneurial career of focusing on time so that I could work hard and be successful, but when I got to success, I never stepped back. Right? I had a hard time stepping back and giving the attention to our lives. So that's kind of that concept of it will never be about equal. So what is it about? And this is the concept with a surfer. So if you watch a surfer, they must be in balance, right? If they're not in balance, they're off the board. But where they are in balance, the position of the board, whether they are going fast, whether they are going slow, if they're going left, right, shooting through the tunnel, I don't even know what that's called, but it's really cool. Wherever they are on the board, they are 100% there. And then the next move takes them to another place, right? So the value of being present, and what we talked about with the time, is one of the key aspects of balance is to be where you need to be, when you need to be there 110%, and then move on. Then go to the next place, thing, person, entity that you need to give attention to, and do the same thing. Be where you need to be, when you need to be there, and be there 110%. So much calm, peace, clarity comes just from doing this. It's a hard thing to untrain our brains on with the whole multitasking. It's hard to untrain our brains on what we think the concept of work is. It's hard to untrain the brains when it comes to the balance aspect. But if you just think about making the appropriate choices, ruling from that throne, if you will, so that you can see your vast kingdom, and understanding that your attention needs to be here for a while, your attention needs to be here for a while, and you're not ignoring. And because you're not ignoring, you can be 110% wherever you are. So that, I think, is huge, especially if you've ever been with your family and worried about work and at work and worried about your family type of things. This helps solve some of that internal tug of war that we have in our lives and in our business. So let's get into some of the rules. So when it comes to the rules of claiming your crown, we've got our standard 5. Makes it really easy to keep up with. So let's get into them. So what are they? So one is refocus on your purpose with tenacity. Just like I said, balance is not about an achievement. The moment that you lose focus on it, it will go away. Just like the moment that you lose focus on your use of time, it goes away, it feels wasted. So it is with balance, and you must give a tenacity to this. It must be a higher purpose and must be driven behind everything. And the whole concept of understanding the value of what you're saying yes and no to plays into here tremendously. So if you understand the ultimate value of balance in your work and your business, you're also able to say yes and no to things when you can keep that value in mind. Understanding the power of presence, we just went over that aspect. Lowering the bar to rise above it. we create high bars for ourselves. I create tremendously high bars for myself. It's just a part of my personality and what makes me wonderful at what I do. But there's also this element of good is good enough, and when have you reached that? When have you met your 80%, 20% effort to reach 80% productivity? When is that mark? And so that's what lowering the bar to rise above it is really about, is like lowering some of the expectations, those super high things, so that you can actually meet your expectations and exceed them. There's a great quote by Tim Ferriss I shared on a podcast episode a couple of weeks ago. So, and it was all about balance. So you can see that there. Expect the resistance. This is where we're going to spend our time today, because I'm going to wager that most of you understand, want, desire work-life balance, have tried to get it into your life in one way or the other, but it's this rule that knocks you on your bum every single time. So this is where we're going to actually spend the rest of our time on today. And then set and reset. So just like that surfer, where you're in action, you're in motion, you're balanced on your board, but you have to keep moving, know that this is a process of setting and resetting, adjusting for changes in priorities. If it's summertime, if you have a parent that's ill, heck, if you're ill, being able to reset those things to accommodate for what's going on in your world and your priorities is key. So set and reset. All right, let's talk about expect the resistance. We have this little magic wand experience in our brain that we feel like the first time we try something, it should just work. I so have struggled with this. I'm much better at it. Amy's probably laughing on the line, but I am much better at it than I have been in the past. And there's resiliency that talks about that, and there's focus and discipline and all those things. But it's that concept that it should work the first time that really knocks us off our rocker. And so when I talk about the resistance, I'm going to tell you that in the process of bringing your work and your life to be able to grow it in a way that doesn't kill you, you're going to meet resistance. You're going to meet resistance from yourself, and you're going to meet resistance from others, because there's this element of change. And there's actually, if you remember the whole stages of grief, this is what this is adapted from. It actually comes out of Power of a Positive No, so there's an element into that, and I just tailored it to what we're talking about today. So I give this example in the way of an external source, whoever that source is. So we're making a choice to say no. We've done it in a positive manner. We are preserving the relationship, but there's still resistance, right? And you're going to come up with this. It's either, and I gave you some examples. If you think about avoidance, I don't want to talk about this right now. Well, can't we just get down to business? We don't have time for that right now, okay? To denial, well, that's not really a problem. Of course, it's not a problem for them. It's a problem for you. But they don't see the problem, right? The anxiety, well, what are you talking about? What does this mean? Where you start to get a tinge of that anger, which is next. Well, I can't believe you're doing this to me. I can't believe you're saying no to me. Well, I'll have you know that there are 3 companies lined up behind you that were willing to say yes to me. This is all comes from that anger, and it's natural. It's natural for a person as a human to go through these experiences and to use either guilt or past or, like I just gave, there's 3 other companies that are willing to do this for me, as reasons to get you to give away the no and go into yes. Bargaining, oh my gosh, it won't happen again, I promise. If you'll just take care of this one last time, I promise. I would love some examples where that promise actually was true. So it's a bargaining chip, because the next time, well, you did it for me last time, why can't you do it for me this time? It'll be this constant bargaining chip. And then there's this element of sadness. Well, I'm really disappointed. I'm really upset. You may not get a full emotional cry, you may not get, any of that, but somehow there's going to be this verbalization of sadness, deep sigh. How people move through these stages is really different. They could go straight to anger. They could go straight to bargaining. They could be in anxiety for a while. You know, every person is going to kind of manage change differently. So the responsibility, you know, when I say that you are the master of your own destiny, the responsibility aspect of this is that you created the situation by saying yes first. The nice thing is that you can change your mind. You can always change your mind. You could change your mind tomorrow. You could change it 10 times if you wanted to. There's other side effects to overchanging, but the freedom of it is that every day is a new day and that you can make a different choice. So you have to kind of understand that I allowed, I created, I have responsibility, but now we're going to change. And when you can see that your potential person on the other side is going to have one of these reactions, if you understand that it's natural for them to have it, you're not so set off kilter when it happens, because it just happens. And I'm sure every one of you can think of an example to where it's happened to you when you've said no to something. And so if you understand that they're going to go through these ways, then you can actually deal with them, I think, a little bit better. And I've got like 3 slides here that are all going to talk about managing the resistance, because I think the resistance aspect actually comes at you in almost like 3 waves. Okay, there's the initial resistance because it's new, because you didn't do this before, because it wasn't the way that it used to be. And so when you look at how to manage this resistance, the first way that I will tell you is to look at it from a what's in it from me standpoint. You've heard us talk about marketing and how to find your right client and where the WIFM statement comes into. This WIFM statement actually could be used so many different ways, but look at it from your client standpoint. Is they're really asking you, when they challenge you on a no, what's in it for me? How does this benefit me? And so if you're planning a no because you've asked for time to consider something, you can give it an opportunity for a benefit to them. The benefit to them is that while we would love to add that additional piece, element, extend time, whatever, we find that it really prevents us from being able to deliver on time. And we find that our clients that we deliver on time are the happiest, most ecstatic clients that we have. And so I really want to make sure that you're happy at the end of this because we delivered on time as well. You know, it's putting it back into the ballpark of how is it a benefit to them. The second part is the Disney moment. So just the yes, no, yes. If you've been to Disney, I experienced it at the Hyatt resorts that we go to in Texas, so the Lost Pines and Hyatt Hill Country, is if you've ever gone up and asked a request, how Disney handles the request is quite amazing. You know, it's like, unfortunately, I'm not able to do this, but then I am able to do that. Right? And so it's a bit of preserving the relationship, giving them what they want, understanding the benefits that they're out there to look for, and still staying in the parameters of your boundaries. You know, my kingdom has, you know, either one round wall or 4 straight walls, and you're going to preserve those kingdom boundaries as best as you can with these things. The last part is, especially in resistance, and as much as you can, don't prove your reasons. You do not have to give reasons. You really and truly don't. Where I find the reasoning aspect is, because this is your business. This is your life. These are choices that you are making based upon your values, what's important to you, how you want to reap the benefits. They're not made on the other guy. And so when you start to give reasons, you start to open up opportunities for people to say, well, that's not important. Well, of course it's not important to them, but it's important to you. So as much as you can stay out of the reason proving ground, it would really benefit you. And it might take you, well, tell me one reason why. I would go back to the WIFM statement. What's the benefit to them? Well, one reason why is that we find that our clients are ecstatic when we deliver on time. And with that in mind, and the fact that I really want you to be a happy customer and to be completely 100% satisfied, This is our option. I'm not giving reasons, that I'd have to hire more staff or that it takes 3 times as long or any of that. I'm going back to the benefit that it provides to them. So just stay out of the proving ground because it's a minefield until you're really, really good at things like that. But so that's kind of my first wave of resistance. And I love the quote from Steve Maraboli, and this is from his Pinterest page, but he's like, basically, don't be discouraged by the resistance, be nourished by it. Understand that it's progress, right? That it's a basic natural instinct that we have as humans, and it actually means movement. Okay, so the continued resistance, like you've said your benefits, you've said you've presented it in a way that it benefits them, you've been firm, positive, you're preserving the relationship, and it's still coming at you. They're still hard hitters. I mean, these are people that are used to winning and used to getting their way and used to getting their way from you. Okay, so this is what I love, and the best way that I can describe it is the Love and Logic series for parenting. It was something my husband and I read early on, and times I need to go back and reread, but it really starts to be about changing behavior, because that continued resistance, like I said, these are people used to winning. These tend to be people that are used to getting the way that they want. It's still a subconscious action. Might be semi-conscious for some people, but typically it's about a behavioral issue. And so you start to reframe things in changing of behavior. And one of the things that Love and Logic does all the time is, I am able to do this when you are able to do this. I am able to do this when this is complete. I am able to deliver your project on time when the changes come in at least 24 hours before the deadline. I am able to do this. I am able to keep your budget at its level when you've met all of your milestones. If not, then I'm going to have to charge you more in order to meet the deadline. It starts to put the ownership of the behavior not necessarily on you, but onto that other person, so that they're back in control, so to speak. But again, you've defined your boundaries. I am able to do this when this happens. If this does not happen, I am not able to do that. Just straight logic there. Or you can use the whole if then this, then that type of strategy. So if you are late with your corrections, if I don't receive them by noon, then I am going to not be able to meet the deadline at 5 o'clock, and I'll be able to meet at 5 o'clock tomorrow. It just starts to correct those little behaviors. So what's more important to you? That I get it out at 5, or that you're able to get those last minute changes in, or are absolutely happy with the way it is? I'm willing to make you happy either way. What makes you happy? So again, that negotiation skill, putting the burden of choice back onto them, as long as it's within your boundaries. I mean, that's the whole balance boundary issue, is because we're not honoring what balance and what boundaries we need in our lives and in our business to be the best that we can be. All right. We've all had the resistance that won't go away. I will tell you, I have a case that I am not going to share with you, but I do have a case. I have a former client from 4 years ago that is in this area right now. Haven't spoken to that person in 4 years, okay? We're at this point in time where the resistance won't go away. I've said yes, I've said it kindly, I've tried to be positive and assistive, I've shown the answer, but there's still a lot of resistance. They are focused on getting what they want, and I am focused on maintaining the boundaries that I know are right, okay? So we're in this element of the definitive no. It's a straight no. It's just no. It's no, no, no. It has gotten to the point where obviously the relationship isn't, the relationship maintaining method isn't working. The if then this what isn't working. The trying to have them take ownership of some of the what's going on isn't working. And so it's to the point of the definitive no. And at this point in time, you really have to start asking yourself, is this a good fit? Not is the person bad, not is the person wrong or right. That's not what this is about. We're talking about, is this a good fit? In the relationships that we have in our business and our life, is this a good fit? Is this supporting the greater good, the greater balance, the greater happiness? I mean, that's what this quote is about, right? Is it supporting that? And even things that you love, relationships that you love, I hold no ill will, period, to the situation that's going on. I think they're fantastic people. But I'm seeing how that relationship wasn't a good fit because we're still in the point of arguing. So there's this opportunity, and it is a last-ditch effort, but there is a point to where you just may need to release that which is not serving. You may need to let go of a relationship. You may need to let go of a commitment. When you've worked within the boundaries that we've talked about, I mean, you've given good faith. You have put forth every effort. You know, you've gone and read the positive no and have used its tenets, and you're still at a point of stalemate. In positive no, he talks about it's a plan B. And so where I see this a lot in people's businesses, especially with clients that are poor fit clients, maybe we're trying to salvage the relationship, maybe we're at a point in time to where we've taken money in, and that means to dissolve the relationship would mean to give money out. That can be a hindrance for people. And so we really talk about how do you release this? What's the most positive way to release this? Because it's not fitting and it's not serving the greater good. It could be that complicated. It could be very simple. What I want you to understand is that you always have the ability to walk away. You always have ability to say, well, it's been great to work with you. I'm sorry we can't come to terms on this. Me and you know ill will, but I think somebody else would be a better fit. It is actually one of the best gifts that you can give to yourself and that you can give to your client. Because if you, and I say client in this instance, but if you think about commitments, if you think about, you know, volunteering, charitable, children, I don't want to say children, you know, I hope you wouldn't have to do that there. But you can see friendships might come into here to where it's just time to release them. It's time to allow them to have a better influence in their lives because it's not fully positive. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about resistance, because the resistance can be very subtle. It can be very overt. It can be constant. It can be, you know, come in waves. And I wanted to give you the tools because I think you know that you want balance. I think you understand what that might mean for you. But really where the gap has been is in making it happen. And that's what this, you know, really this has been about. So you do have those other 4 rules there. I think I think a lot of that we talked about in the last couple months has dovetailed nicely into this. It does actually help start freeing more time so that you can work on the things that you would drive your business or your life forward in one way or the other. But by and large, this is probably the biggest piece of calm and peace and joy that you can bring to your life. It is a process, is what I'll say. So the next best step for you, like I said, I wanted you to write down some excuses that you might have pop up in your head as we go through these things. I might like for you to look at some of the commitments that you make and if you're looking at your business and your life as, you know, the ruler, the person that's claimed the crown over them, how do you have them work the best within your boundaries? And what boundaries do you need to shift in order for you to be able to give that attention, for you to be able to be that surfer, be completely balanced and present where you are, and navigate through the waters of the constant change of life and constant flux. One of the things that I did want to let you know is that we are developing something new over here. And part of that is that I've had a lot of conversations with business owners that are all stuck in either growing their business, finding the time, the money to grow their business. And so we're developing something that is a bit revolutionary in some ways, and it's basically a low cost way to get the business coaching that I offer in a group format that still has people being able to see results, still has people being able to grow their businesses, and wanted to let you know about that, because if it's something for you, if you want to be in on our beta, kind of get on the ground floor, I need to hear from you, because we'll be talking to those people over the next couple of weeks. But it is basically a membership club. It's going to be like the six-figure business club, and we're going to take people through really the process to building the business. So if you're just starting, this is awesome. If you're years 1 through 3, this is awesome. If you need to fix some things that aren't working, this is going to be right there, and it's going to give you a step-by-step plan of what pieces to work on first, how deep you need to go into there to get to a place of cash consistency. This is not what I would consider the end-all and be-all. This is about getting into six figures and being there healthily, being there profitably, being there easily, because that's the first barrier that businesses have. There's more after that, but this is really adjusting that, because it's a big problem right now that I see with businesses. So if that's something you want to hear a little bit more about and want to be in on our beta, we're only taking 20 people. I have 12. Right? I have room for 8. So if you want to be in on that, just send me a quick email. It says, I want more info, support@yourbizrules.com. We'll find a time that we can hook up and I can explain to you the details. Everybody seems to be pretty good on the question area. What I know is that what I share is very practical and makes a lot of sense to people. So there's not always those questions. The questions come up in implementation, right? I may have shared something that you know, and you may know it, but knowing something and then knowing how to put it to use are two completely different things. So if you have a question, feel free at any time, same email address, you can shoot me a question. If it's something simple that I can answer for you, I'm going to be more than happy. If I've got a resource I can send to you, I'm going to be more than happy to send that to you as well, because my greater good is that I'm building businesses, and as many businesses as I can help to become healthy so that they can have healthy families and a wonderful life. That is the gravy for me. So with that, guys, we are at an hour. I told Amy I only thought it would be an hour today. And I thank you for joining us. Be sure to come back next month. We're actually going to talk about the cash roller coaster and how to get off of it. And I'm going to have some more details. By that time, we're actually going to be able to go live with our beta in about a month. That's our goal. And I'm happy to share those things with you. So if you want to be a part of the beta, just let me know. Shoot me an email. If not, please join us back here next month for our next webinar. And I wish you the very best. May you enjoy your day and your businesses be profitable. Thanks, guys.